Welcome to How to Be a Couple with me, your host, Giuliano Gramado. What if your relationship problems are actually a self-worth problem? I'm posing this as a question, but this is literally the pattern that I've seen. Um, Most relationship problems that I see between couples is an issue with their own self-worth. This is actually super ironic because you would assume, wait a minute, wouldn't it have to do with, either some, measurable dynamic between the two or the way someone's talking to the other person or something related, like connected between those two people specifically. But it's not that way. It's ironically your relationship with yourself that is going to dictate the quality of the relationship you have really with everyone, but especially with your partner. This is a concept I talk about a lot, that your relationship is essentially a mirror to yourself. The depth to which you are able to love yourself is the capacity to which you're able to love someone else. In this case, your partner. A lot of people don't think about this because, well, there's a lot of reasons, right? But I think part of it has to do, and you'll hear me say this a lot. I don't mean to like pass the blame. I think everyone should be taking responsibility for their own perspectives and things like that. But when you grow up, watching TV and movies all the time, like I did myself, um, it affects the way that you see relationships and how they're supposed to work. And a lot of times, like the thing that's romanticized is like, oh, you complete me, and I could never be happy without you, and my life was terrible until now I met you, and now my life's amazing. And so a lot of us develop this idea that being in a relationship with someone, finding the right person, means finding someone who will love you no matter what, right? Who will love you despite how terrible you feel you are, despite how imperfect you are. That's like the general thing. Like people talk about like how much they don't like themselves. They judge themselves constantly. It's like, oh, I'm this and I'm that, but my partner, they love me anyway. And I'm saying it in this voice because it's this kind of, like I said, it's like romanticized. It's this thing that like we latch onto. And, I mean, that could probably go on for a long time about why people tend to hate themselves. But let's not. Let's talk about how to fix it, okay? And let's talk about how it affects your relationship as well. When you, first of all, when you dislike yourself, um, really what that's coming from, ultimately, what it is you judging yourself. Okay, looking at you and saying, "I don't like this thing." And oh my gosh, I can't believe I made that mistake again. I always do this, blah, blah, blah. Right. Now, maybe you would talk to other people like that. But what I like to imagine is like, would you talk to your partner like that? And again, maybe you do. That's part of the problem. But a lot of times people will talk to themselves in a way that they would not ever talk to another person. Like super judgmental. And what you have to understand is whether you say that out loud to your partner or not, when you are quick to judge yourself, you are quick to judge your partner. And the way that you judge yourself is the way you will judge your partner, meaning like the intensity at which you judge yourself. If you look at your own behavior, your own thoughts, your own history, your own actions, all of those things, and you're kind of carefree about it, it's like, that's okay. It's all good. Then that's how you're going to be in your relationship. When your partner does something that might be irritating or might cross a boundary, or they're just being themselves, right? Or they make a mistake or something like that, you can be carefree about it and it's not a big deal. And this is something I said before, is that it's your perspective of the relationship is the relationship. Okay. Meaning if your partner does something and it pisses you off and you get so angry, how do you feel about the relationship? You're like, oh, this sucks. The relationship is rocky right now. This is not good. You might say that the relationship is bad or something like that. But that's coming from judgment, right? So if you are not judging your partner, And again, backing up further, that if you're not judging yourself, therefore you're not judging your partner. Therefore, you're having a good relationship. Now, I do want to be clear. I'm not saying that you should just be letting some like terrible things go by. I'm not saying that, but most of the time, the issues that people have with their partner is not truly that their partner is like doing something actually terrible to them. It starts with judgment, right? It starts with, I'm not a fan of that, or I can't believe they did that thing, or wow, that was really stupid, or um, wow, like that's that's not something I would do. um, but again, if you take it further back, it's about judging yourself. Do you look at your own behavior that way? How harshly do you judge yourself? And I think, what's kind of funny about this is that this is something that is it's like people almost know this, right? There's something that that like you shouldn't be judging yourself, and you see people do it now where they kind of like hype themselves up and they talk about how awesome they are, but like their self worth is actually like in the dumps. You know what I mean? Um, I just saw this recently where it's like people are talking about, oh man, like I'm so awesome, like my husband's lucky to be with me, blah blah blah. And I'm not saying that they're not, but my point is that usually when you do feel that way, you don't like need to tell other people, right? You just feel that way. And so a lot of times when someone is like, "Oh man, I'm so awesome," and they feel like the need to tell other people, and almost like in this situation, it was this person was saying almost as if like, oh, like my husband couldn't do better than me, right? And that's like when you're like, okay, well, now it's very obvious that this is just you hyping yourself up, right? Because there's a difference between like having true like confidence and like a strong sense of self-worth. When you have that, you don't have to compare yourself, right? You just know and appreciate yourself for who you are and the value that you bring. But it's not in comparison to another person, or it's not like, oh well, I'm the best this person's gonna get. No. Okay. Um, so my point is that a lot of people will recognize the need to feel good about themselves, but they do it on a surface level by just talking themselves up and like, man, I'm so awesome, and like, yeah, I'm so cool, and I'm so great, and blah blah blah. When again, their self-worth is really just in the shitter. So how do you fix this? Right? How do you actually like yourself? Isn't this kind of funny? We're talking about relationships, but now this is where we are talking about liking yourself. I really do believe that the quality of your relationships um, is greatly affected by your own self worth. So, how do you increase your self worth? Um, there's this exercise. I've talked about it for years because I learned it many years ago and it changed my life. Um, it's funny I say it changed my life. I know some people are gonna hear it and be like, "Are you serious right now?" Because it's really not that crazy, but it changed everything for me. So a while back now, we've got to be talking maybe almost 10 years now. I went to therapy and I was taught this exercise, and so now I share it with other people because it was super valuable to me. And I think specifically in this situation, it really does apply and it will help your relationship. I think it'll help every aspect of your life, but especially your relationship. And it's this exercise called I Like Myself for Being. And all it is is very simple. Okay. Um, I still do this exercise once a month. There was a point I was doing it once a week and then I got a little much, but I do it once a month now. Like I said, for the last almost 10 years now, I've been doing it. So what it is you write, I like myself for being. And for me, like he gave me a worksheet and it was just filled in already. Now when I do it, I just open up a Google Doc and at the top I write, I like myself for being. And then I do 10 bullets. And like I said, on the sheet, it was written out already like 10 times. And there was just like a blank space after the end of I like myself for being. So the way that you do it is you just finish the sentence. Okay. I like myself for being, right? And it could be any word you would use to describe yourself. So it could be, I like myself for being generous. And for me, I usually give like a little like it's a really short explanation afterwards. I like myself for being generous. Um, I love to give when it's in my power to do so. Okay? Like that would be one way to fill it out. But it doesn't have to just be these like, you know, first of all, it does not have to be accurate. Okay. It could be something that you like want to work towards, right? Maybe you're like really not as generous as you want to be. Okay. You can say something that it is more like aspirational for you. But it also doesn't have to be like serious or like, you know, specifically like qualities that you're like, well, this is the perfect person. Like it would be generous. No. Like sometimes I like almost every time I put like, I like myself for being funny. That's not something that, that you guys are really exposed to here, because it's more of like an in-person thing for me. But I'm really funny. Like I'm really good at making people laugh, and I love making people laugh. So I might write, I like myself for being funny. I love making people laugh, right? And so the idea is that you go through this and you fill in all 10 bullets. You finish the sentence 10 times. And when you first do this, if you've never done it, and if you're probably like most people, it will be difficult to fill in all 10. But that's actually kind of where the magic is. So you start at the top. I mean, some people probably maybe even struggle just to begin the exercise. But if that's the case, then you need to realize that like this is something you do actually have to do. You clearly have a self-worth issue. But the idea is you start at the top, you keep going, and especially when it gets hard, you have to push through to fill in all 10. And this is not just like, you know, like you just got to do it. I'm not saying it like that. What I mean is that like where you get stuck and where like you can't come up with more things, that is like your ceiling. That is your ceiling, your capacity for how much you like yourself. And when you push past it and you force yourself to push past it, you're essentially increasing that capacity to which not only are you able to love yourself, but you're able to love other people. I write I like myself for being because that's what it was. But you could also write I love myself for being because right, this is self worth. It's about liking yourself, but it's also about loving yourself. Um, so I encourage you to do that exercise. I also would love to know like if you feel the same after doing it. For me, it literally was like the first time I did it. And I knew I had to fill in all 10. I got stuck partway through and I was like, man, this is really hard. And I forced myself to think about like, what are things that I actually like about me? And to be clear, you're not allowed to be like nothing. You have to fill in all 10. And I remember for me, like it was just the first time I did it. Once I pushed through and I got to the end, it just shifts something in your brain. And the idea between for doing this repeatedly over time is that first of all, there's going to be things that you learn about yourself as you grow and change, that you will come to appreciate more. But it's a reminder to actually be thinking about these things that you like about yourself, that you love about yourself, and to maintain your self worth and to grow your self worth over time. And remember, the whole thing that we're talking about here is that the depth to which you love yourself is equal to the capacity at which you're able to love someone else. And in this case, your partner. So if you focus on loving yourself and liking yourself more, it will naturally, just as a byproduct, solve so many of the problems that you have in your relationship. Because in reality, when you love yourself, it is easier to love other people. And again, it's about self-worth, but it's also about not judging yourself. And when you're looking for the things in yourself to appreciate, you don't even have the opportunity to judge yourself. And that's really what's happening with your partner as well. Either, and this is what I've observed, right? The problems in your relationship, in my opinion, they're either a manifestation of a lack of self-worth on your part, meaning like there's something you don't value about yourself and therefore it's manifesting into the relationship. And I'm not saying like woo woo manifesting, I mean like it's like a byproduct of that. Or um you are judging your partner because you have this pattern of judging yourself. So either way, you've got to work on your self-worth, because if you don't have a solid self-worth, that will manifest into the relationship and you will self-sabotage, you will create issues because you feel like you're not worthy. And if you are just judging yourself, that means you are going to be constantly judging your partner, and that clearly obviously will create issues as well. This is what I got for you today. If you want personalized relationship coaching, I have a waitlist going to work with me one on one. Just send me a DM that says waitlist to howtobeacouple.co on Instagram, and I'll add you to the list and let you know when a slot opens up. In the meantime, remember this, it's not about fixing the relationship, it's about fixing the way that you see yourself. Talk to you next time.